I can even say that for my own story. I mean, it started with pornography addiction, but that was just the first outlet. And because it wasn't enough, it absolutely climbed into drug addiction, alcohol addiction, food, video game addiction, codependent relationships. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if we really look at it for what it is, I mean, it's only an addiction because it's an unhealthy way of getting a healthy need met.
Welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. This is a show presented by Heart and Solutions Counseling Agency. We release new episodes every Sunday at 5 p.m. Central and encourage you to batch up that laundry, put away the dishes, plan for the week ahead, or do any other task that might seem daunting while you give our show a listen. You might just be encouraged to call your therapist, connect with this week's guest, or seek out those services you've been considering for a while but haven't made the commitment to yet. If you are in the state of Iowa and are in need of mental or behavioral health counseling, give us a call at 1-800-531-4236. Enjoy the show.
Hello, and welcome back to the You Need a Counselor podcast. My name is Dr. Julie Johnson. I'm the founder of Heart and Solutions Counseling here in Iowa.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt. I am our Vice President in charge of the Behavioral Health Department. And this is our podcast, You Need a Counselor. So we are designed for people curious about counseling, but have barriers keeping them from experiencing the benefits of counseling. Our mission is to share stories about counseling, good, bad, and indifferent, and spread the message that everyone can benefit from mental health and behavioral health counseling services.
Our guest today is the founder of Know Thyself. He is a coach that helps men to understand themselves, work through their past trauma, work through any current identities or past identities that might be keeping them stuck in addiction to pornography. And we hear a lot in our culture about addiction to drugs, addiction to alcohol, and the physical harms that those can create. We don't get to hear very much about addiction to pornography. And so I'm excited to welcome our guest here today, Charles Meyer, to tell us more about it. Hi, Charles. Thanks for being here.
Thank you guys for having me on. I'm excited to be here.
So if somebody hasn't heard of addiction to pornography, if somebody's like, I didn't even know you could be addicted to pornography, what would you tell them about it?
Well, so there's a couple of things that we can talk about. It really depends on where the pressure point is for someone. And, I hate to say it that way, but, there's a lot of problems with pornography as a whole. The industry is known for human trafficking. The industry is not known for playing by the rules. It's a massive industry that is highly unregulated. As much as they'd like to say that they play by the rules, they don't. I can talk about the interviews that I've had with people that used to catch child predators, and to give you a bit of a note there, the guy said that pornography is always the gateway drug for someone that doesn't know how to draw a line in the sand. And no one ever starts out thinking that they'll end up being a predator. Now, this is not to say that everyone becomes a predator. I'm just saying that this is something that happens and that porn is a gateway drug. The same way that, we could talk about the fact that, not everyone who starts smoking nicotine is going to end up on meth one day, but it all starts at some gateway, right? And so really simply to put it, that pornography is a massive problem and it does lead to very insane things. All you got to do is search the words betrayal trauma on Google, and what you're going to find is hundreds of thousands of women that have experienced being traumatized when she finds out that her husband is massively addicted to pornography. There's groups of hundreds of thousands of women that are all trying to help each other through this pain because, it's just a screen. So it's not an affair if it's just a screen. It's not another woman, except the brain doesn't actually know the difference between what's real and what's fake, And so, there's a lot of debate on if it is actually cheating or not. I go to say it is. because you see that the way that it impacts other people. And in turn, what this does is children see mommy and daddy fighting, so they lose their security, and then they go and look for that security outside of the home. And next thing you know, we have a whole generation of children that have grown up and they're still looking for their parents in a new partner. And so it's a whole world full of codependence right now. And so that's another angle that we could look at it. We could also talk about how pornography, it damages the brain. It damages your prefrontal cortex and your ability to make decisions. And it also damages I believe it's like reducing the gray matter in your brain, which controls like motor function and pretty much everything that makes you, right? We could even talk about oxytocin and the chemical side of having an orgasm released by pornography. So what happens with oxytocin in particular, like dopamine's a whole nother rabbit hole, but let's talk about that first, about oxytocin for a second. When someone has an orgasm watching pornography, oxytocin is released and they are now bonding with whoever they are seeing on the screen. And so I guess you could say that it is also chemically cheating. So maybe it is actually cheating, but point is, after that bonding experience happens, now the wife becomes an irritant. Now the children become irritants because chemically, biologically speaking, that man has now bonded with someone else, and his family threatens that bond at a chemical level. So there's many different ways to look at how this is a problem. Heck, I've heard stories from husbands and wives where the husband has literally dumped their entire lifetimes of savings into prostitution or into just purchasing pornography videos. And it's insane the depth that this can go to. This can really destroy lives. But at the end of the day, we have tons of people out there that are totally uneducated, and hearing that it contributes to human trafficking isn't really enough. Okay, then I'll just watch safer videos. Oh, well, these girls don't look of age. Cool, then I'll just watch older age videos. Oh, well, this feels racism. Then, you know what, I'm going to watch this kind of video. Oh, well, this is religiously a little more taboo. Then cool, let me watch a different type. Like, it's a very tricky, finicky addiction to talk about because the male brain is more geared towards logic because of how suppressed men have become emotionally since we went through this entire we went through World War I and World War II, where men had to go off to war and they come back and they're all traumatized and they're emotionally shut down. And now, because they've brought all of that trauma with them, and the men of the next generation were taught by the mothers how to be men, you have these men that don't know how to be men because they were not taught how to handle emotions like a man. So they're not really men. They're older biologically, but they're still emotionally boys. And because they're emotionally boys, you have men in their 30s and 40s and 50s raising these next generations of men, but they're telling them that it makes you weak if you show emotions. It makes you gay if you show emotions. If you show any sign of crying, then you're a loser and you need to be tough because you are obligated to be a protector and a provider for your family. And I totally believe in being a protector and provider for your family, but this obligation makes a man live out of fear that he will never be enough and he will never be able to be loved for who he is because he has to work hard and he has to be a cog in the system for everyone else, and all of his needs go unmet. And next thing you know, drugs, pornography, affairs, gambling. So it's tough because it's a system that fuels itself. The men were not getting their needs met, and so they go to get their needs met. It creates the brokenness that in the next generation, now their needs are not met, so they need to go get their needs met. And it goes in circles. So this is not just an individual problem of one family is is getting their lives destroyed and everyone is just watching them. No, this is happening on a mass scale all around the world right now because of a highly unregulated industry that eats its own. It's humanity against humanity right now. And there's a big mask that's being taken off. And there's people standing up and suing the industry, saying that like there's women everywhere saying the pornography industry drugged me, coerced me, raped me, and now they're suing these industries. And there's a lot more rallies out there lately that are trying to spread just how real the damage is on all fronts. It's not just the person being filmed; it's the person watching the film. And here's another interesting angle. I read a little while ago that there is even people who are working for the porn sites who are supposed to review the videos before they're released. Those people are known to end up with mass anxiety and PTSD, and they're known to have all these crazy effects on them. Yeah, maybe there is something to this. So, this is why I do what I do. I want to see the world a better place for my kids. And there's a lot of people on the team right now that they're on board for the mission because they want to see the world a better place for their kids as well. They don't want their kids, who are now becoming more aware and more conscious, to stumble onto pornography and then be a part of this system. They don't want that for their kids. I don't want that for mine because I lived it firsthand. And I've spoken with a lot of men at this point, men and women, who have both been deeply impacted. And there's been a lot of brokenness that has gone undiscussed. So I know I've been talking for a minute now. Like I said, it's a lot. We can go in a lot of different directions.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, that was a lot of info. Okay. So you are specifically working with porn recovery, like porn addiction. I know you mentioned it can start as like a gateway drug. Do you think a lot of the men that you work with also are addicted to other things and just you specifically work with porn, but it kind of relates across the board if they're addicted to also like alcohol or things like that as well? Does it seem pretty like linked when you work with these men?
Absolutely. So the interesting thing about it is I actually interviewed an adolescent addiction recovery therapist or counselor. I can't remember which one. But I asked him this question. I said, all these kids that you're working with who are addicted to drugs and all these other things, do you ever see them dealing with a pornography addiction? And he said, every single one of them has a pornography addiction. Every single one, without a doubt. And, on top of that, I can even say that for my own story. I mean, it started with pornography addiction, but that was just the first outlet. And because it wasn't enough, it absolutely climbed into drug addiction, alcohol addiction, food, video game addiction, codependent relationships. Because at the end of the day, I mean, if we really look at it for what it is, I mean, it's only an addiction because it's an unhealthy way of getting a healthy need met. And really, if we start looking at a better way to meet a legitimate need, I think that we can start having a different kind of conversation than what I believe most people have done, which is suppress the real problem and sort of demonize addiction. We've put this frame around it called addiction, but if we pull back the curtains, everyone's addicted to something. So maybe it's not that it's addiction that's the problem. Maybe it's the way that they're getting their needs met. And so, that's one of the interesting things I've observed as I speak with more people who are professionals in the addiction recovery space. They all say the same things. These are really, really good people, but they have all these problems. And you look at the similarities across the board and why they have these problems. And it really comes down to, well, they have mother wounds, father wounds. They have religious wounds. They've got all these different parts of brokenness that they've never addressed. And those brokenness, those parts of brokenness is what keeps them from actually getting their need met in a healthy way. Like if someone has a mother wound, which for me, that was a big thing. I had a mother wound. And it kept me from getting my need for comfort and love and intimacy met in a healthy way. So what did I do? I went to pornography as a compromise because it kept me safe from needing to open up for real. And you know, I think that's really part of the problem. And when the reason why I see so many of these addictions being linked, going back to the original question, is because when one need goes unmet, typically it spirals into multiple needs going unmet. And that's really what I think is going on, is that you never just have one. If you like, we can literally look at fruit. If you leave a bad apple in the whole barrel, you're going to rot the whole barrel. If you leave one wound unattended, you're going to see the whole person messed up eventually. And I think that's what's going on here. It's never just one addiction.
Yeah, I mean, you talked about these very, very valid human needs that we all have, that need for connection, that need to be wanted, the need to procreate, the need to be able to have control over our lives. And these are very valid needs, and these are very healthy needs to have. And pornography that's a very difficult addiction because it meets all of those needs. It meets the need for control because I can't control my partner, but I can control what I get to see in pornography. I can't, if I don't like something, I just turn that off, right? It's my daughter has a YouTube addiction, and it's because of that. If she doesn't like the video, she looks at the next video, right? And then she gets like a little bit anxious when she doesn't have control after she's been controlling YouTube for a while, right?
Yep.
So it gives that sense of control. It gives that sense of connection. We are releasing oxytocin, which is that love hormone. We're releasing that. We're getting that connection feeling, but we're not risking the rejection that it might take to talk to somebody that we're attracted to, or to interact or have a relationship with somebody else in order to get that feeling or that chemical boost. So it does these things, but it also, because our society is so closed off from discussions about sex, especially within the family unit, that nuclear family unit, it can be so taboo to have any discussions about sex that then when there becomes interest in sex, it can feel like shame, and it can feel like this has to be hidden and this has to be shameful. And addiction loves shame. It loves that isolation that something like this does with our family, where we feel like, nope, I can't talk to my family about this, even if I'm suffering because of the pornography that I'm watching. I can't talk to my family about that. I can't talk to my church group about that. I can't talk to my pastor about that, right? Because it feels like in our society that this needs to be private, secret, and can't be shared. And so I love what you're doing, because you're putting it out there that, like, you are not the only person struggling with this. You are not the only person suffering from this, because just the guilt of it. Sometimes we think, well, education about the pornography industry, how it harms the people who are involved in the industry. Sometimes for somebody who has that addiction, that can just create more of a need because of the guilty feelings that come with that, the disassociation that comes with, well, I'm a good person who would not harm somebody else, right? But I'm doing this thing, I'm engaging in this activity that now I know does harm other people. Now I've got identity concerns. I've got issues with my own cognitive bias or my cognitive dissonance. And then I am more likely to try to numb that, or stop thinking about that, or stop that bothering me by going into comfort. And if pornography has helped me to feel comfort, then it can kind of just pull us more into that. So I like what you're doing in terms of not only focusing on, yes, the pornography industry is harming the people who are involved in the pornography, but also the people who are viewing the pornography.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, if you look at some of the statistics, um, I can't remember. I don't know how old this is, but 11 is the average age that a child is first exposed to pornography, and 94% of children will see porn by the age of 14. And I mean, another just crazy stat out there, 56% of American divorces involve one party having an obsessive interest in pornographic websites. And so there's maybe some could say that there's not a direct correlation to divorces caused by pornography, but I mean, the statistics are out there. It's out there. And I could keep going on and on. Really, the only other one I'll say right now is that 55% of married men and 25% of married women say they watch porn at least once a month. I mean, it is not something that people are unaware of. I think that there, like you're saying, there's a lack of desire to share about it because of the shame and guilt that surrounds it so much. And I think that really what needs to happen if we want to see a change in the way that these discussions are held so that more people can get help is we need to start talking about this from that perspective of we're all in this together. It's not just a singular issue. It's not us versus them. We're all in this together, and it's on all of us to do something about it.
Yeah. So you then created, it sounds like from your own personal experience, created Know Thyself, a Freedom Accelerator program. Can you explain what Freedom Accelerator means and what people can expect from Know Thyself and what you kind of do in your coaching sessions?
Oh, absolutely. So, Know Thyself, it's very special to me because it was created based off of my story of getting free from 12 years of pornography addiction, including drug, alcohol, video game, all the addictions. I was literally the everything addict. And I had a very crazy story of freedom. But really, what can be expected when someone's walking through to freedom in the Know Thyself program, they can expect things like a chemical cleanse, where I'm going to walk them through what it actually looks like to detox from unhealthy associations to oxytocin, dopamine, serotonin, where I'm going to help them to take a step back from all the distractions of life and really look in the mirror of life and see themselves as they actually see themselves. Nobody goes to pornography because they love themselves. They go because there is something inside that maybe it was a word that someone said to them. Maybe it was thousands of words, or maybe it was something deeper. But whatever it is that made them believe something about themselves that is less than who they actually are, they need to be able to see those things so that they can address them. And when you see the truth, which is that you are not those things which you believed yourself to be in a negative light, the truth will set you free. And so I believe that taking away those distractions, using the chemical cleanse is really important for someone to get the progress that they wouldn't typically see in in the event that they're trying to get help, they're trying to ask people for help, but what are they doing to let go of their old life? And so that's really what this is about. Like, let's start that process. If you're actually serious about it, then take the physical step and start clearing these things out of your house and clearing these things out of your life. I mean, hey, it's no different from if you're trying to lose weight, then get rid of your whole pantry. Start filling it up with some fruits and veggies. But how often are we going to do that? Where it's to the extent of, if you're addicted to TV, how badly do you want it? Do you want to throw out your TV? Do you want to sell it? All I'm doing through this chemical cleanse is I'm helping people to take a look at how seriously they're willing to take themselves by taking actions that come into agreement with what they say they want to do. You want to get free? Cool. Let's go take a step. Let's go clear your life from the distractions. Let's see what's beneath the surface that you've been running from. One of the other things we do in that process of getting someone free is we'll walk them through what I call a nervous system reset. And that's where we focus on things like workouts and diets that actually help them to get themselves in a very positive state, get more emotionally engaged, like get those emotions unstuck, all those things inside of you that you've been holding on to. You got to get your body moving so you can let go of that stuff. And part of that is also we combine it with a process called neurogenesis and neuroplasticity. So neuroplasticity, as you may be familiar with, is where you're rewiring the brain. And neurogenesis is something that isn't talked about very frequently. That's the automatic process that your brain goes through of growing new brain cells. So I will admit I'm still studying the science behind this because it goes very, very deep. But the workouts and diets that we're using are designed in a way that it helps speed up the process of the development of new brain cells. Because here's the thing, you can say you're rewiring your brain. We're all rewiring our brains 24/7. But are you actually rewiring it to the brain you want? Or are you still living the same lifestyle, the same habits, the same routines that build the same brain? So while they're taking a step back and they're looking in the mirror and they're going through all these resets and changing their behaviors, we're helping them to grow new brain cells at an accelerated rate so that they can actually go after that new life and they're not fighting what they've biologically conditioned themselves for. And there's a couple of other components, but I think that those are some of my favorites to talk about. So really what this does for someone at the end of the day is, like, we have a lot of people who are going through, marital problems because of the addiction. And so when the guys are working with me, on the other side of this, they'll leave. Unfortunately, not all of them, but the majority will leave with a better understanding of how to hold relationships in a masculine and feminine way. That way, neither one of them is fighting each other or hiding from each other. I'm helping them to use their voice, to set healthy boundaries, to speak truthfully, but also in love. And really, it's not just about porn recovery. It's about the fact that pornography has also stunted men emotionally. Therefore, it stunts them socially. So how can they expect to be good to someone in a marriage if they don't even know how to be good to themselves? So there's a self-love aspect. And as they learn to love themselves better, they can love other people better. And I could keep going on about this, but leave it to say that these are some of the main things that are discussed in the program. And we focus on taking actual steps that help someone to see real progress. See, we bridge the gap between information and action. That's where I think most people fail, because honestly, they're too busy being sponges, and they're convinced they're making progress in their life just because they're retaining information and they know all the core tenets and they know all the pillars and they know how to talk about it all and say it all, but they have no idea experientially how to take action on any of the things they know. So while they've convinced themselves that they're actually changing, they haven't done a dang thing to change their lives. It looks the exact same. And so that's the goal of the program, is we do all these things intentionally to help someone stop being such a sponge and start being an action-taking sponge. I want them to learn, but I want them to get free too.
Yeah, I like that you're, so conventional wisdom, right? Or, your uncle that you ask about it, or, random people might say, well, then don't have pornography available in your house, or just don't watch it. And what you're doing is you're saying, no, pornography is one of the ways that you are looking to find comfort, that you are looking to get your needs met. And so let's do a detox and take all of them away that we can, because and so for some people that's work or TV, like you said, or it's just when you're feeling so overwhelmed, or when you're feeling so any kind of negative emotion, or uncomfortable emotion, where do you go? What do you do with it? And so do you call a friend? Well, that's a great way to do it. Or do you go watch pornography, right? That is going to be a more destructive, because it's not going to address what actually is happening for you in that emotion. And I loved what you said before about how war really nurtured so many men into, you need to suppress your humanity, you need to suppress how you're feeling. You cannot act on emotions because you will die in wartime. That's absolutely correct. And then bring how that has kind of come down through the generations, in being able to say, in this time of peace, it is safe to release those emotions. It's safe to feel those emotions, and it's safe to express those emotions with somebody else. And what you're really doing too with the workouts and the diet is it's subtraction by addition. So you're saying, okay, before we take away everything that is comfort to you and go, let's just open the floodgates to all of your feelings, let's put some healthy structures in for you. And so when you're like, oh my gosh, I can't take another minute of this day, what am I going to go do? I can't go smoke a cigarette, right? So what am I going to do when I have that feeling? Okay, I'm going to go out to my garage and I'm going to lift weights for 5 minutes, right? Or I'm going to go and go for a walk around the block. It's being able to fill that in with those new habits first, before we start saying, okay, let's take away everything that's currently working for you. So I think that's great.
That's actually a really interesting point I want to touch on right there. One of the things that happens, and it's so heartbreaking when I see this happen, is that anyone struggling with an addiction, they'll replace their addictive habit with a good addiction, but it's just another Band-Aid. And so you're absolutely right. Like, our goal, let's displace and replace the bad habit with a good habit, but let's not do it in a way that covers up what's going on beneath the surface. And so what I tell these guys to do when they're working with me is, look, you don't have your coping mechanism. Go face it. Go face that thing you keep avoiding. Learn to live without needing coping mechanisms. That way, your lifestyle actually sticks, because the reason why a habit doesn't stick is because it's not based out of choice, it's based out of obligation. There's no attraction, desire, or pull, no love in it, in other words. Instead, it's based in obligation and fear and running away from something. And that's honestly, it's the same thing that happens when a guy tries to go to a relationship to escape a pornography addiction, except now he has the pornography addiction still that he thought he could get away from, and he's brought someone into the mess too. And I've seen this time after time. But really, the point would be that the way that someone gets their needs met is the underlying piece that needs to be addressed. Because they can keep changing their habits, but now going to the gym, a supposedly healthy habit, becomes the new porn addiction. And that's really what we want to avoid at the end of the day. Give them the new lifestyle, give them the new habits, but address what's going on underneath so that they can learn to build a lifestyle that actually sticks with them for life.
Absolutely. Those uncomfortable emotions, the fears and the feelings of worthlessness, right? The feelings of not belonging, the feelings of I'm not going to get my needs met, or I'm hopeless, or I'm helpless. I don't have control over my life. Those feelings absolutely get supplemented, and they can easily be supplemented into something else, the next thing. And so having that now, you talked about the 12 steps and how for a lot of people, AA or religion or certain programs, they don't work for people. And for 12 step, it really is going into, okay, when I want that cigarette or drink or whatever it is, right? I'm gonna process through the feelings underneath. How is what you're doing kind of different from that, or deeper than that?
So I'll say that there's a lot of similarities, and I've learned that that's something I have to accept. And this is just, me really trying to show that, like, I know that at the end of the day, a lot of these similar programs do very similar things in the very same way. But the thing that I believe really makes what I do different is we have a complete solution, meaning we touch on everything from what your spiritual life looks like, to your emotional life, to your physical life, your social life, your financial life, your sexual life. We get into everything. There's not a dang thing that we leave out, because freedom from the addiction that is this bad needs to be addressed at a holistic level, because it infects every part of your life. And so wherever you go, there you are. It doesn't matter if you're looking at your finances. It doesn't matter if you're looking at the menu in the restaurant. It doesn't matter if you're in a social conversation. Wherever you go, there you are. There is the addict every single time, and he can only see the world through an addict lens. So the more places that we can show this person who's struggling with addiction, the more places that we can show him where the addiction has impacted his life, and we can help set him free in every single area, the more he will be able to be free in his new life. Because what happens is people will find freedom, but they don't change their lifestyles. They don't change their habits, and they still run parts of their life the old way, while maybe some of their life is the new way. You got to change everything about your life if you want to become a new person. It must be a complete change. And I'd say that that's probably the biggest thing that we do, is that it's not just dealing with specific sections and then tossing other things out. No, we say it's all of it, and you got to deal with all of it. And so this isn't just freedom from addiction. We're teaching people business development or how to pursue their dream career. We're teaching people physical fitness and how to live that healthy lifestyle. We're teaching them marriage and relationship and social skills, and how to navigate the waters of building a life that is intimately connected with other people. We're teaching them how to live an absolutely maximized life in terms of fulfillment and satisfaction. Because I believe that the worse the addiction is, the deeper the craving for more of life is. And so the reason why people go back to addictions, even though they might have been the star student for 15 years in a recovery program, the reason they go back is because the change was not real. And that is I know it's a bold statement to make, but the reason I believe it wasn't real is because I've seen thousands of people have this same conversation with me about, I just got to be more disciplined and I just need to have better coping mechanisms, except they're white knuckling it. And you can white knuckle something for 15 years until it destroys your marriage or it destroys your career. And next thing you know, this house of cards you've built has finally fallen down. And so what I want to do is help men to build their lives without it being a house of cards. I want them to build on a solid foundation. And one of the cool things that I'd say about what we do is we're experts in helping people understand where they're lying to themselves. And we've learned to develop those skills where we can see when someone is double speaking or they've got that cognitive dissonance, and they're not really letting their actions are not aligning with their words. And so when we can help point out those things, we're showing them the mirror. We're saying, hey, you're doing it again. Hey, you're doing it again. And eventually they realize, when they see the patterns over time, oh, that's what you're saying. That's what's going on. That way, they're not just taking action. We're teaching people critical thinking. We're teaching people emotional intelligence. We're teaching them how to have mind-heart coherence. That way, they're synced up as a person. We're teaching them meditation so they can connect spiritually. We're teaching them how to really become fully themselves, not just free from addiction, but how to unlock abundance in every part of their life, because that's really what's needed. Otherwise, that little bit of scarcity, as long as that remains, there's always an open doorway to go back to square one. And that's what we need to help someone do. Is living in abundance is about having your needs met abundantly, not just some of them, but all of them. And so I'd say that that's like that big differentiator, is that we go for total abundance, not just freedom. We go for everything.
So if someone listening is interested in starting coaching with you, how do they get started? Where do they find your information, and how do they set up a first appointment with you?
So the easiest way for someone to connect with me is going to be on Instagram or Facebook at Freedom Worker Charles. That's one word, Freedom Worker Charles. Website is still in development, but it's on the way. In the meantime, Instagram or Facebook at Freedom Worker Charles. And let me know that you are coming here from I Need a Counselor. You can simply put I Need a Counselor when you send me a message, and I've got a free gift for you.
Very cool. Well, I think a lot of people can relate with what you've discussed here and with the struggles that so many people face. And it can be your neighbor or your spouse or your partner, and they're, because of all the secrecy surrounding sex in general, it is much more widespread, I think, than we realize, and more people than we realize in our communities are suffering day to day. So Charles, thank you so much for being here. This was great. And for the service that you're providing to men out there and to their families. I think it's very needed.
I'm Charles Meyer, and I Need a Counselor.
And I'm Chrissa Hunt.
And I'm Julie Johnson, and we need a counselor.
And so do you.
Thank you for listening to the You Need a Counselor podcast. We are so grateful that you're here. Now, we want to hear from you. Text us or give us a call at 515-650-3231. You can also find and connect with You Need a Counselor on Facebook and Instagram. If you've enjoyed today's show, please take a moment to like, review, or leave a comment, as all of these things help others to find and benefit from the podcast as well. If you're in the state of Iowa and interested in mental health counseling or behavioral health intervention services, give us a call at 800-531-4236. We'll see you for the next episode, Sunday at 5.